Hey Burns, how are you today?
Doing all right, Dick. How about yourself?
Well, now that the pandemic is, well, first of all, we had the big storm, which is worse than most hurricanes, flooding, the whole thing. A bunch of substations got flooded out, power was off in Waikiki, etc. My TV out on the patio short circuited. I guess it doesn't work anymore. But the flip side is you realize 35,000 people a day come through Oahu Airport. That's 1 million people a month. You guys have
That's it.
just got to friggin' stay away. We don't need you here. I mean, it's just kind of the way it is. Okay, so that's my thought on that. World's going to hell in a handcart as usual. The Navy water supply to Pearl Harbor is now apparently contaminated with jet fuel. So 2,800 people are being kept in hotels so they don't get poisoned. So we got that going on.
And I'm paying for that, right?
Oh yeah, we're all paying for it. Crazy Maisie, your buddy, aside from a certain other lady I won't mention, she thinks the EPA should come in and solve everything. Schatz, our other senator, thinks the Navy is lying, and our aquifer is going away, and pretty soon we won't have water. So I don't know. Things are just fun, and then you can look on the national scene, and it's even better.
And I know I'm becoming more and more concerned with what's going on on the international front. We have a president in the Oval Office who is addle-brained, and I'm not saying that in a mean-spirited way. It just appears to be a fact. And the Russians have staged 100,000 troops on the border of the Ukraine. And then in this past week, I've read some articles to the effect that the Chinese have been doing some saber rattling, that if the U.S. were to, send troops to Taiwan to defend Taiwan from a Chinese, an invasion from the mainland Chinese, the Chicoms, that they would shoot to kill. So it concerns me that we have a weak president. We have a Congress that, particularly on the House side, is absolutely controlled by the radical left. And I don't think, based on history, Dick, that the two major powers in Europe, France and Germany, will do anything to contain the Russians or defend the Ukraine. So you have a long career in the military. You were an officer. I don't know if you have any insights on that, or you share in my concern, or if this is just Putin.
No, I have always been a history buff, but they don't teach history anymore. So I guess that puts me in the whatever it puts me in. But when they took Crimea from the Ukraine, nobody did squat. And don't
That's
forget,
right.
that was not Biden. So I'm not really sure anybody will do anything.
And they also they took Georgia.
Yeah, but the only question is, I don't think Americans give a rip one way or the other. I'm not sure anybody else really gives a rip. So, I hate to say it. I think it's going to be bad, but I don't think anybody will intercede and do anything.
The only thing that might cause Biden to do anything at all other than sanctions, and sanctions have never deterred Putin. So I think that's all bluster. But Biden does want to protect his son's, salary stipend. I'll call it his bullshit stipend that he gets in the Ukraine, among other things. And he also has a lot of interests in China. So that, I would think that kind of complicates the decision making. But, that'll remain to be seen. But
Well,
any time he and we've talked about this before, he bungled the withdrawal from Afghanistan. I mean, it was almost you could call it an obscenity to leave Americans behind, as well as to leave military assets behind in the manner he did. But now, because the legacy media has put the Afghanistan situation behind us, Americans move on to the next topic. And to me, the minute it kind of gets quiet on the international front, something tends to blow up.
well, let me address Afghanistan. I've said this before, but obviously it didn't sink in. A lot of those, quote, Americans who were deserted, left behind in Afghanistan, they wanted to stay. They had families there and everything else. If they didn't get to the airport and didn't try to get out, since they all had the paperwork to do it, I'm kind of going, woe is you. If you wanted out, you should have gotten out. Don't wait until everything goes to hell in a handcart. That's number one. Number two, the equipment. Well, we went through that in Vietnam. We dumped helicopters off piers and you name it. It's kind of hard to tell what damage was done. One part of the news shows the Taliban flying around in helicopters with U.S. markings. Another one shows a bunch of planes where the windshields were smashed and whatever. So, God knows what actually happened.
My understanding is that most of the assets, they weren't able to detonate them, if that would be the right choice of words, blow them up, so that or strip them, and that some are already in Chinese hands. And they were talking about, I wish I could remember the number. Wasn't it something like $900 million, almost $1 billion of hard assets?
Yeah, it was something like that.
Yeah, I mean, a huge, huge number now in the hands of a known terrorist group. So I, in my opinion, the thing was bungled and badly.
Well, yeah. But the flip side was Biden didn't do it on his own. All this started under Trump.
Yeah, but Trump. I have not seen that the Trump plan for withdrawal has been contested by the left, and they typically jump all over everything. And I haven't heard any senior military officer out of the Pentagon or the Joint Chiefs try to defend what Biden did by saying he did something no different than Trump planned for us to do. So,
yeah, valid point, but I don't really trust the news anyway.
one thing that concerns me, if we woke up tomorrow morning and saw the headlines that Putin had moved into the Ukraine, I could envision the Chinese thinking Biden's no match for Putin, and now would be an auspicious time to move on Taiwan. in effect, test the waters by seeing if sanctions were the only response from the United States. I don't think the country has the stomach for a two-front war, having just gotten out of the longest war in our history. And I mean, the logistics of dealing with the war in the Ukraine for however long it lasted, or in Taiwan, for God's sakes. Hell, we can't get goods off of cargo ships at Los Angeles and Long Beach. If this administration can't handle a major supply chain debacle, what gives me as a citizen any confidence that the military could turn around and, if we were to choose a military option, deal with Taiwan and the Ukraine?
Well,
and particularly if NATO didn't respond to bolster, the U.S. response.
well, a little bit of history. The war in Sicily was basically won by military logistics. I mean, that was the whole deal. My wife worked for the transportation people. They're good, so that's not a real problem. Oddly enough, if people took a look at Hitler's Operation Barbarossa, you could probably learn something from that too. Now you switch over to Taiwan, and back in former times, I notice I don't say old days, but in former times we had the Chinese trying to take over Quemoy and Matsu. And
Right.
that kind of died off. So, I'm not really sure. What I don't understand at all is why either country is pursuing what they're pursuing. What's the gain? What would they get out of it? What would the Chinese get out of taking Taiwan? What the hell did the Russians get taking the Ukraine? I mean, it's unbelievable. It makes no sense.
Lebensraum.
Well, yeah, that's why I made the comment that you could probably learn something from Hitler's, Barbarossa.
Yeah. By the way, for our listeners, Quemoy and Matsu, that was one of the main issues that in 1960, the Kennedy-Nixon debates, that was a heavy hitter, so to speak, in terms of the issues that they dealt with in the debates. And of course, that was back when debates were debates, instead of the mudslinging and theatrics that go on today. So anyways, I can't talk in depth on it. I just throw it out there as something that in short order could become a very vexing problem. And again, particularly for a weak president.
Well, speaking of problems, I am so fed up with hearing January 6th called an insurrection. I mean, if you know English, it doesn't fit. I can see calling it a riot, which I think you don't even think it was a riot, but I mean, it doesn't matter one way or the other. But, if we're not precise in our use of language, people will never understand the big picture. And it's ridiculous.
Yeah, let me just clarify. I'm okay with riot. I mean, they were seen scrambling up walls and, in some instances, forcing their way into the Capitol. Now, there are also reports that Capitol Police literally opened the doors for a lot of those people and motioned them in. And a lot of people think the whole thing was a setup. But I'll concede that it was a riot, but riots, they have different levels. And where I'm in total agreement with you, whatever it's called, is it didn't approach in any way, not even close, what BLM and Antifa were doing all year long a year ago, particularly through the summer months, in looting, arson, attacks on innocent people in terms of some cities, and two come to mind, Seattle and Portland, where they literally took over so many square blocks in the downtown and cordoned them off.
Ooh. Portland is now one of the top 3 cities for murders.
Is that right?
Oh yeah, thank God we defunded the police. It's working out really, really well.
Yeah. Well, there was a report, I don't know, the top 7 cities for homicides in the country, and they were all run by Democratic mayors.
And they were all people that wanted to defund the police.
Yeah.
Seattle, Portland's now number 1. Chicago's always up in the whatever, and the list goes downhill from there.
Philadelphia comes to mind, the city of brotherly love.
Yeah, I think that was one of them too.
Yeah.
But see, you're a racist if you bring that up.
Well, we have a homicide problem here in Houston, and we have a Democratic mayor and all Democrats on the city council. They asked the mayor what he was going to do about it, and he said, I don't think our homicide rate is any worse than any other major metropolitan city. I believe Houston's the 4th largest city in population in the country. So the reporter quoted the actual statistics, and the mayor looked dumbfounded. So obviously he's not on top of what's going on.
Well, yeah, but
he came back with we're currently working on a project to revitalize the criminal justice ecosystem. And that's a direct quote. Now, that is such nonsensical crapola, but that's what he came up with, kind of an off-the-cuff reply.
Yeah, but he seems to be getting rock concerts under control.
Oh, yeah, that's, geez, that's kind of tough there. But the Democrats, I mean, the ecosystem, systemic racism, existential threats. I mean, somebody's going through Webster's dictionary and finding words that they think will provide them a screen of pseudo-intellectualism to hide behind. And sometimes they can't even pronounce the damn words, or they're trying to use, off their talking points. But anyways, that, I mean, law and order, at least presently, is a thing of the past.
Are you trying to tell me there's a paradigm shift?
Yeah, and that's a good word for it too. Yeah. Then I saw another thing, jumping around. The Portland mayor has been caught not using a mask countless times, both at work, but more often in social gatherings. But now they had a report this week that youngsters, school-age youngsters, I'm not talking middle school or high school, I'm talking about little kids, we're asked to sit out in the cold 40-degree weather wearing masks as part of some type of COVID related program. I mean, it's beyond the pale. And God, where did I see it? I think it's a school district in California. This is probably a good guess. Things like this generally come from California, but they've passed a regulation initiative, whatever you want to call it, that parents do not have to be consulted or provide approval to have their youngsters vaccinated with the COVID vaccines. In other words, the schools can do it at will, and the parents have no say in that. And I think that, were I living there, and I had school-age children in public schools, or what I like to call government-run schools, I'd up and move in a heartbeat. There are a host of reasons to get out from under Newsom and the draconian things he's done and continues to do. But, taking control of what properly should be parental control, I think is, the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. Wake up, Dick.
Yeah, I was just thinking, because this COVID thing just gets worse whenever. And I was talking to a friend yesterday that just got back from the Galapagos. He had no problems traveling. He's getting ready to go to Rwanda, and I said, well, check out the hotel while you're there. The guy that they based the movie on is now under international crime prosecution. But I guess what brought that to mind is it's different everywhere. We still don't really have a handle. Have you ever heard anybody lately talk about the original COVID? It's all about the Delta.
No, now it's the latest iteration.
Well, yeah, but see, now even Delta's kind of coming back. The original thing is kind of past news, and now they're talking about the Omicron variant, which might not be as dangerous, even though it's more contagious. Hell, maybe the virus decided to do a trade-off.
Yeah, and the majority of people in the U.S. who have contracted the Micron, am I pronouncing it correctly?
Omicron,
I
guess. I don't know.
Have been vaccinated. So apparently the COVID vaccines do not provide any protection.
Well, that's not true, because there are several studies that have come out and said that the people that have been vaccinated get a flu-like infection, don't go to the hospital, as opposed to dropping dead.
But I didn't say they were dropping dead. I just said they were contracting it. But I'll concede that all the reports are that the symptoms are mild.
Yeah.
I was just making the point that they do contract it despite being vaccinated.
Well, I think with just about any vaccination, that's probably the case. But I think as long as it lessens the effect, it's a win. I mean,
Well,
it beats having all these people hospitalized and dropping dead.
well, now they're talking, they meaning Fauci, who, I think he ought to be drummed out of the Corps, or better yet, lock him up in a broom closet and throw the key away. but he's talking about a fourth shot now, or the equivalent of a second booster. And this is just going to go on and on and on. And the remedies, the quote unquote science, changes day by day. So I think most Americans have lost all faith in Fauci, but the media still gives him a platform. I mean, I don't know how you can be on so many TV shows and still be doing your job of analyzing data. I just don't think he does it. I think he's relishing his celebrity. And I also am the first to say, as much as I dislike Biden, Trump made a rock star out of Fauci. So Trump has some culpability for parading him out every day, those daily briefings that they were having on COVID. He and the scarf lady Blix, I mean, they were given a huge platform, and most Americans tend to think if they have a long title on their business card that they must be telling us the truth. And I don't think that was the case. So what else? How about inflation? Inflation is now at a 40-year high. So that would take us back to the year after Carter left the White House. And of course, the momentum of the inflation under the Carter years easily carried over into the next 12 months. But that's how bad it is right now. And
Well,
folks, that's a tax.
yeah, but see, the sad thing is you hear all the politicians saying it's going to get back to normal. Well, history has shown, I'm sorry, we don't teach history, but if we did, we would show that in most cases, once prices go up, they don't go down. I mean, oil might be an example of something that'll go up and down based on market play. But I mean, there's a shortage of cranberries. It's very important to me. There's a shortage of turkey. There's a shortage of chicken bits or whatever they're called. Tenders, chicken tenders.
How about Cabernet Sauvignon?
Oh, yeah. There's a shortage on all that. I mean, chicken tenders, I don't care about.
But you care about wine.
Yeah, Cabernet and chicken wings I care about. But the sad thing is everybody's going to blame it on something. But in fact, it's the damn companies that know that if you raise the prices, it's not going to go down. It's always that way. And if you think it is, you're smoking pot.
Yeah, but Dick, a lot of it has to do with the infusion of cash out of Washington to deal with COVID.
Yeah.
And now in Biden's term, to deal with the Biden version of Barack Obama's shovel-ready jobs program, the 1.5 trillion, and we all know that number's.
Yeah, but see, let's go back to our Claremont economics class. You increase the money supply, prices go up. Duh.
Yeah, and the other thing is they plan, and of course they'll have to do it before next year because I think there'll be a Republican sweep of the Congress. But if they raise the corporate tax, people need to understand that the Democrats keep talking about all the corporations that don't pay tax, corporate tax. And of course, those corporations are providing huge donations to the Democratic Party. But if you raise taxes on corporations, they pass that through to the consumer,
Of
whether
course.
whether they're providing a service or they're providing a product. So
Well,
you
that's,
get hammered on the inflation rate, you get hammered on Biden's increased taxes, you get hammered on corporate tax increases that'll be passed on to consumers.
and shipping
Not-
costs.
Yeah, on and on it goes. And where it stops, nobody knows.
Yep.
John Q. Public is getting it from all directions. And then on top of all of that, we're all being not asked, but forced to cover the costs of this huge influx of illegal aliens coming across primarily our southern border and being transported and all over the country and seeded into communities. And that huge social safety net give people that in many instances can do nothing better than, pick cotton or mow a lawn, huge subsidies. So I haven't seen a study, I'd like to see one, of what the impact of all these things are. And knock on wood, I'd like to think it won't get past, it'll get past the House, but not the Senate, the Build Back Better monstrosity, which is basically social engineering and the Biden version of
The New Deal.
no, Bernie, geez. The Vermont senator.
Yeah, Bernie, what's his name?
Bernie Sanders.
Yeah,
That was called a senior moment.
okay,
But,
that's fair.
the Green New Deal, the AOC, Bernie Sanders monstrosity, God, were that to pass, we'll blow this inflation rate right out of the water. And I just don't see people having anything akin to discretionary income anymore, particularly middle class. Biden swore that the middle class wouldn't be hurt. Famous last words, every president campaigns on that. It's not happening.
No, and I think it's now time to quit until next week.
Oh, already? Okay. Well,
Already, yeah. Do you have any final words?
I just hope everybody's, getting ready to have a very happy Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah. And, knock on wood, let's hope things are better. It starts with the Congress, and then we have to make sure we find a good candidate and get out and vote in 2024, right?
Right.